I think he covered that. And what's interesting is I got a text. Welcome to the congregation of Yahweh. We're here on Yahweh's Sabbath day. Greetings to those on the internet. We hope you enjoy the messages that are going out. Today's message is part 2 of a message that was just given. I just want to discuss Mark chapter 4. A sister said that she felt led to send me to Mark chapter 4. So I've been reviewing it and also see how it kind of ties in with Matthew chapter 5, which we'll go over there in just a few minutes. But I'm going to start in Mark chapter 1. And he began to teach again by the sea, and a large crowd was gathered to him, so that he entered into a boat to sit in the sea, and all the crowd was on the land facing the sea. And he taught them much in parables, and said to them in his teaching, Listen, see, a sower went out to sow. And it came to be, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the birds of heaven came and devoured it. And other fell on rocky places where it had not much soil. And immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of soil. But when the sun was up, it was scorched. And because it had no root, it withered away. And others fell amongst thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. And other fell on good soil, and yielded a crop that came up and grew, and yielded a crop, some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100. Now this parable is given in several different places, and there's a little bit of a variation to the details. But 99.9% of the time when a mainstream pastor discusses this, they're always focused on the soil. They're always focused on where the seed is going. But instead of, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if we would focus on the seed, there's something very deep there. And until I ran into people that understood the significance of the front of the book, I never heard anybody focus on the seed. But anyway, continuing on in verse 9, he says, And he said to them, He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And when he was alone, those about him with the 12 asked him about the parable. And he said to them, To you it has been given to know the secret of the reign of Elohim, but to those who are outside, all are done in parables, so that seeing they see, but do not perceive, and hearing they hear, but do not understand, lest they should turn and their sins be forgiven them. He said to them, Do you not understand this parable? How then shall you understand all parables? The sower sows the word. These then are the ones by the wayside, where the word is sown. And when they hear, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in their hearts. And likewise, these are the ones sown on rocky places, who, when they hear the word, immediately receive it with joy. And they have no root in themselves, but are short-lived. Then when pressure or persecution arises because of the word, immediately they stumble. And others are those sown amongst thorns. These are they who hear the word, and the worries of this age and the deceit of riches and the desires for other matters enter in, choke the word, and it becomes fruitless. And those sown on good soil are those who hear the word and accept it and bear fruit, some 30, some 60, and some 100. Now, a couple things that I want us to notice here is this sower that's sowing the word, he's not a hired servant. He's not sowing the word. He's not sowing the seed for payment. He's sowing the seed for fruit. That's his payment. And it says here that the seed that went into the good soil, it says they hear it and accept it. Another gospel says they hear it and understand it. It is the hearing of the word, the seed, and also understanding what the word is saying that determines how much fruit is actually going to come out of that. And Genesis says that a seed reproduces after its kind. So, and it's a very interesting parallel with what's going on today with genetically modified organisms. They're actually taking seeds they're removing genetics from the seeds. They're taking genetics from other entities, other organisms, and they're putting these genetics in the seeds. So they're adding to and they're taking from, and guess what? That seed will not reproduce after its kind. It is corrupted, it is contaminated. So the only way the word can actually go down into the soil and come up with fruit, and inside the fruit is what? More seed, more word. So the only way that can take place is if we don't add to it or take from it. When you start tampering with the word, it will not produce fruit. And if the masses out there who claim to follow the Messiah would get that concept that his word does not change, we don't need to tamper with it, we don't need to add our own instructions, we would do well. But continue on in verse 21, he says, and he said to them, would a lamp be brought to be put under a basket or under a bed? Is it not to be put on a lampstand? And I thought that's interesting because that's kind of gleaned from Matthew chapter 5 when he talks about being the light of the world. For whatsoever is hidden shall be revealed, and whatever has been kept secret shall come to light. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And he said to them, take heed what you hear. Be careful as to what you hear. With the same measure you use, it shall be measured to you, and more shall be added to you who hear. For whoever possesses, to him more shall be given, but whoever does not possess, even what he possesses shall be taken away from him. And this is, referring to knowledge. If you are striving to understand the word, he's going to give you more. And he said, the reign of Elohim is as when a man scatters seed on the ground. He goes into another parable here. I'm going to skip over to Matthew chapter 5. And I really focused on a few verses in Matthew for years. It was a main topic of discussion frequently, and it's just been within the past maybe year and a half, 2 years that I saw a connection between several things that he is talking about. Let me see here. That's in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 13. And what I'm about to point out here is, for these next few verses, he's all talking about the same exact thing. It's all the same thing. And when we get that, it is so amazing. Verse 13, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt becomes tasteless, if it loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? For it is no longer of any use, but to be thrown out and to be trodden down by men. You are the light of the world. It is impossible for a city to be hidden on a mountain, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it shines to all those in the house. So he's basically saying a light is worthless unless it can be seen. Let your light so shine before men, so that they may see your good works and praise your Father who is in the heavens. So here he's making a connection that the light that shines for people to see, the light that shines that people are going to see and give glory to your Father in heaven, are your good works. So it is our actions that are the light. And when people see your actions, they give glory to your Father in heaven. And what comes to my mind when I read this is in Deuteronomy. It says, when the nations see all these statutes and these right rulings that you keep, they will say, what a wise and understanding people this is. That is light shining in darkness. That is light shining in darkness. But what's interesting is he said, you're the salt, you're the light, let people see your good works. And the next verse is simply amazing in that context. Do not think that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. That's amazing. As many times as I've read that verse, I didn't realize that the law and the prophets are the good works and the light that needs to shine. Continue on and then he tells us how serious he is about not destroying the law of the prophets. For truly I say unto you, until the heaven and the earth pass away, One jot or one tittle shall in no means pass from the Torah until all things be accomplished. So as long as the heavens and the earth are still standing, not one stroke of the pen or not one letter shall pass from the Father's instructions. And then he goes on to say, whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so, shall be called least in the reign of the heavens. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the reigns of the heavens. So the commandments that he's referring to, the jots and the tittles that he's referring to, the law and the prophets that he's referring to, the light and the salt and the good works, these are all synonymous. It's the Father's word. It's the seed. It's the seed. For I say unto you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall by in no means enter into the reign of the heavens. So I really want to just focus on those two parables there, and how the seed. I mean, it all fits together. The seed is the word is the light are the actions, the good works. The least of the commandments that he was referring to are those found in the law and the prophets. And it is us understanding, it's us hearing that word, going into our hearts, understanding what it's saying, and walking it out that produces the fruit. Hallelujah.